Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Successful as Fuck live stream slash podcast slash everything slash fun. Today is a very, very special day for two reasons. One, I have Tiffani Patlán here with me today. And two, it is my launch day. My pre-order for my book, Successful as Fuck, went live today. So if you are watching this live or within the next 30 days, I highly recommend and strongly request that you visit successful-af.com, view more about the book. It's amazing, not just because I wrote it, but because it is an anthem for all of us in embracing who we are and being authentic to who we are and really meeting ourselves halfway when it comes to what we think success is and stopping us from feeling like we have to embrace what everybody else says. We get to decide. So welcome, Tiffani, to the show. And I'm just so glad you're here today.
Me too. Thank you so much. I'm excited to share. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Tiffani and I met in a group that we're in together, and our first call ran so long because we had so much in common. And so we were like instant friends. And so I have little categories in my CRM, and I was like, immediately I put her, I'm like biz bestie, you know, like she gets promoted from networking to biz bestie. Tiffani, why don't you tell the viewers a little bit about yourself and how you serve people?
Well, I am the best-selling author of the book, Unlocking Your Ability to Heal. And this is a big, big deal for me because this actually shares my story of overcoming a life of mental, physical, sexual, and substance abuse. And I'm so grateful for all the healing that I've personally experienced that I had to put everything that I learned, all the tips, tricks, and tools and knowledge, scientific research, statistics, you name it. I felt I had to put this in a book to share with the world because everybody deserves to feel, how I feel, how other people feel that have been able to purge their pain from any trauma or anything that they've gone through in life. And right now I'm working on something that is so exciting. Well, actually, there's two things. One, I'm preparing for my Tedx speech. I actually was writing it earlier today. And the second thing that is new that I'm going to be doing is hosting live events in my local city here in Utah, in Saratoga Springs, and just teaching people that they can do this, a hands-on approach to healing yourself mentally, physically, and spiritually, so people can walk away feeling elevated, lifted, inspired, and with the know-how to implement this into their everyday life so that way they can unlock their ability to heal.
Yes, I love that. And my book is also somewhat the same. Like it's part memoir, part, thought leadership in terms of making our stories make sense for other people. And also, like, side note, my best friend lives in Saratoga Springs, so I love that. Like, that's how random that that life is. Sometimes that brings us together. So I have been there.
Oh.
Yes,
Come back.
I know. I want to actually. I really do. I love it. It's beautiful there.
Yes, the lake.
And I just wanted to say thank you so much for being brave enough to put those experiences into writing because, that's one of the reasons why I wrote the book, which I didn't go into writing the book thinking that I was going to write it this way. I literally thought I was writing a snarky business book about getting comfortable with the uncomfortable. And then they just had us write in the program. They just said, like, just write whatever comes to mind. Like, don't think about whether or not it's going to be in the book. Don't think about just get flowing in writing. And what just started pouring out of me was my story.
Wow,
And it was
powerful.
so powerful. And I was like, oh my God, like, stop it. This is like so much. And but it was like one thing after another thing. And it was so easy, like, to pour it onto the page because I lived it. But just remembering it and then as you go through the editing process, like making it actually real and like not just writing it, but experiencing again is like some of the chapters I just bawled. Like I was done and I would just wail for like an hour afterwards because I'm like, I hate that I experienced that. And some of it I fucked up so bad that I hurt other people that I
Mm,
would bawl and I would be like, I hate that I did that to
yeah.
somebody else because I've been hurt so bad. And so that level of vulnerability, I think, is very rare. And what you and I are doing is normalizing talking about the fact that we
Yes.
all fuck up. We all have some sort of trauma or some sort of negative influences in our lives that affect how we feel about ourselves, about how we feel about moving forward, how we feel about our sense of worthiness. And if you
Mm,
don't feel worthy or enough, how can you succeed?
yes. Boom, mic drop.
Yeah.
Yes to all those things. I agree wholeheartedly. And so, a couple things that you said, like one of them was you went back. And I think a lot of people are scared to go back to those experiences.
Hmm.
But what I've learned, which is what you were doing when you wrote your book, because writing is therapeutic,
It
right?
is
And
so
I
much
realized,
healing.
yes, and I didn't even know that I was going to, like you, I didn't know I was going to experience that when I was writing my story. But I chose to honor my emotions because we tend to, when we have an experience, we don't, no one teaches us how to properly honor our emotions and set them free. So we just collect them. And then we
Yeah.
wonder why we're so bogged down. We wonder why we have mental illness, why we have all these things, these chronic physical pains, why we're so detached spiritually. It's because I feel we're just so weighed down by all that trauma. And a lot of people don't even realize they have trauma because they've never looked in the past, or they just think, oh, I lived a good life. But
Right.
man, doing a timeline of your life is really impactful.
Right. And I think even, I mean, not to like be a downer, but even the people who had beautiful lives, there are things that they've experienced
Yes.
or things that they've witnessed or heard,
Mm-hmm.
things that have affected them in the way that they feel about themselves. And my focus actually in editing as I move forward is this enoughness and is this perfectionism that we come out of some of this stuff. And I'm developing a course and I'm thinking about putting a group together called the Overachievers Club.
Ooh.
And and it's for all of the people like myself that constantly were trying so hard to, like got honor roll and like all the activities. And I was in high school, I had 3 jobs and, like just doing all of these things. And then as an adult, I had kids right away because I wanted to be a mom because I wanted to have the like family. So I got married at 19 and decided immediately to get pregnant because I was like, I'm so mature. I'm ready for this. And now I'm like, I have a 21-year-old and a 23-year-old, and they're like, Mom, you're fucking crazy. Like, hell no. Like, I'm not even close to thinking about marriage, let alone babies. And I had 2 under 2, and it was just like it was insanity, but I knew that I wanted to go to college. And so I went for 12 years consecutively,
Wow.
part-time because I had the girls, and then I did it while I was pregnant with my 3rd child, and I only took off the quarter that I gave birth to my 3rd
Wow.
child until I was done. And immediately, and that was part of my identity that whole time, was like people are like, why or how are you doing this? Like, how do you get all this done? And I was so like doggedly determined.
Mm.
But immediately when I was done, like I remember at graduation, I thought I need to get a master's. And I didn't. Thank God I didn't. I don't need a master's,
You
but
don't have a doctorate yet?
it was because I was so like grabbed on to this achievement of like, or this identity and mantle of I have to be something more
Yeah.
because who I am is not enough.
Mm.
And so and we put all these roles on ourselves and these titles on ourselves and these responsibilities on ourselves because who we are inside we feel is not enough. And so, yeah, did not get the master's, and I'm grateful, and so is my pocketbook. So
I wish I were to have met you earlier.
I
You could have told me that.
know, I know. Tell
But I
me,
get that.
let's rewind. Let's go back to early years for Tiffani, and what was success for you at that time frame? What did like achievement or goodness in life, what was that for you in when you were like, late teens, early adulthood?
The first thing, it's ugly, but the first thing that just popped into my head right now was, am I going to get through today without getting raped?
Mm.
There's a lot of little things like that. It's like, am I going to get a bed to sleep in tonight? Am I going to find meth to do so that way I could stay up all night because I don't have a bed to sleep in and I don't have any food to eat or any money, and that kind of curbs your hunger. So maybe I'll find some of that tonight. Or maybe I won't have to sit in the cold, freezing, wondering why I have to sit here and suffer and I have nowhere to go. So to me, that was success, pure survival. Pure
Yeah.
survival was success for me.
Wow. Yeah. And that's, I mean, we have so many different answers to this question, right? But I think that I don't think, I know you're not alone in that. Um, and there's so many people who have been through that who are not able to say it out loud. You know what I mean? So I thank you for sharing that. Can you tell us a little bit more about that story and how you moved through that to the woman that you are today? Like how did that unfold for you? And then how were you able to get over to the other side, to the woman you are today?
Well, I was basically raised in a toxic environment, which I didn't realize until I wrote my book. As you know, I'm sure, you realize a lot when you write your book. Not only
Mhm.
is there healing, but there's like a lot of like aha moments like, oh my goodness, I never realized that. So I learned that I was raised in a toxic environment. I thought the abuse started, the first time I was incestuously raped at 12, but it actually started, as far back as I can remember because my mother's mentally ill. My father was an alcoholic. My brother, was very violent with me because my mother, I feel, told him at too young of an age that his father had committed suicide, or not committed suicide, but he died of an overdose. Sorry. So he was so young, he didn't know what to do with that. So as you
Right.
can imagine, he's full of anger. So he would physically abuse me, verbally abuse me, just really mean and angry. We were taught not to have a voice, like a lot of the things that you were talking about before. No value, no self-worth. I wasn't allowed to question things. I wasn't allowed to ask questions. So, no voice. Like you just shut up and do what you're told is the way I remember growing up. And there's little happy memories sprinkled throughout. And then I had two little brothers. That was a fun time. And then I remember my mother kicking me out of the house. And I had just woke up. I was barefoot, had like pajamas on, embarrassed, didn't want anybody to see me. So I hopped the wall because we lived in an apartment complex, and like the parking lot, jumped the wall. There's this big deserted area, but nobody could see me. I felt comfortable there, walking around in the desert, hot Vegas sun. And I happened to see beer bottles on the ground. And I've never learned this, so I don't know what compelled me to do it, but I picked up a shard of glass and I carved in my arm, "I hate mom."
Mhm.
Being older, I realized it's not that I really hated my mother. I just think I hated the fact that she wasn't there for me. And I didn't even know what I needed from her. I just knew that I wasn't getting it. And I feel like that's a lot of young girls today. I feel like, and I learned this and I realized this just by looking at my own son. My son's 14 years old right now. And I look at him and I realize he needs me now more than ever. And I feel like my parents thought that, oh, they're a teenager, they're old enough, they can, push him out of my way, whatever. But no, I really needed my parents. I needed them to guide me. I needed them to teach me how to respond to people in school, how to act, how the things to say, what not to say, what to do. And I never got that. So I was just struggling through life. I started getting bullied in school. And then my parents they sent me and my older brother to Texas to visit family. That's when I experienced my first rape incident by my 23-year-old cousin. And I was I experienced that tonic immobility where it's like a possum playing dead. You just become frozen and stuck in fear. So I did that, never told anybody, but I was so uncomfortable being there that I asked them to take me to the other side of my family, my father's side of the family, and to my grandfather's house, because that's where all my family lives in Texas on both sides. So they brought me there. Everything's fine. I'm happy. I'm comfortable. Gone there before. I love my grandfather so much. And hanging out with my little cousin. Next thing you know, my uncle comes in, who I've known before, never had any reason to fear him. And all of a sudden, he decides to lean over the couch where I'm laying, start fondling my breasts, and starts coming over here like he's about to start kissing my neck. And my body did that familiar stance, the frozen, stance. Like my whole body just tensed up. And I think he acknowledged that because he looks back and he looks at me. He's like, "What? You don't want me to?" And I'm thinking to myself, "Do you not know who I am?" Like, hello?
Right.
And so the next day, so this happened like maybe within a couple days, a day, 2 days, something like that, the time frame from my cousin on my mother's side to my uncle on my father's side. So if you can imagine, I'm like, what the heck is going on? Why is this happening? Why is this happening to me? I guess I started developing. I looked older, and I guess maybe before I was younger, and my parents were around then. But so I realize I'm sitting there the next day and I'm holding on to my little baby cousin. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I have to back up because my little cousin that was sitting with me, she went to the restroom, and that's why my uncle was able to do what he did. When she came back, he got up and he left me alone. That's when I knew I need to speak up. I told her. She's younger than me. She didn't know what to do, but she said maybe we should tell my mom. So I'm like, okay. We go upstairs. She lived there in the house, and I told her, and she kind of just got mad at me. She kind of just said something along the lines of, "Well, you shouldn't be staying up late anyways," and blah, 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 and go to bed. So that was that. The next morning, I'm sitting there holding my baby cousin, having fun with her, and my uncle comes in through the front door right in front of me, and he tells me, "What's wrong with you? You look like you've just seen a ghost." That's when I realized I obviously looked scared out of my mind, understandably so. And I was
Right.
like, I have to speak up. I have to. So I felt forced to tell my grandfather, which was not pretty. I told him. He looked really angry. But then he tells me to go into the bedroom where my grandmother's at to tell her. So I'm having to tell it again. So I told her, it was probably slightly watered down. Then they bring my uncle into the room, and I have to say it again. So by this point, I'm just like, yeah, you were just touching me and stuff, because I was so uncomfortable. And he
Right.
actually had the audacity to reach over and touch me, to be like, "Oh, I'm sorry." And I'm like, don't touch me. Like, don't touch me. It's how I felt, but I didn't say that.
Right.
I didn't say that. Remember, I didn't have the power of my voice, really.
Right.
But to my knowledge, that's all that was done. So there really wasn't anything done. Nothing was done. So if you can imagine, I'm thinking, well, there's that. I guess that's it. That's it. Period. End of story. That's it. So I basically get back home and I don't say anything. One day my mother tells me, "I want you to come to me when it's your first time. I want you to be there for me." Because my mom made efforts to be a good mom. I just feel like she did the best she could with the information she had at the time. That doesn't mean she was the world's best mother. She did the best she could. And I understand that now. And I wrap her in love and forgiveness. But then I remember being angry because she would always talk at us. It never felt like a two-way conversation like it should.
Mhm.
And she ended up telling me that. And I remember just screaming at her, telling her, "It's too late for that." And she looked shocked and she's like, "What?" And, like, "Who?" And I told her Anthony, and she knew. And she hugged me, which was odd because there wasn't a lot of affection in the home. My dad didn't come home and say, "Hey, honey, how was your day?" and give me a kiss. That never happened. My mother didn't do that. Like, that didn't happen. So when she hugged me, it was confusing. Her reaction was confusing because of the reactions I got from everyone else. So I was
Mhm.
very, very confused. Next thing you know, I'm in 8th grade, 14 years old, going to 13, 14 years old, going to school and having a sexual relationship with my boyfriend. Um, and at some point, my parents and I got into this really bad argument, and my mother was in my room. She leaves. I remember just being so angry. I couldn't even tell you like what it was about. But it got to the point where I decided to punch my bedroom window. And I was mad because it didn't break. So I made it break. I made it a point to break it. Then I was scared. It was like, oh no, my parents are going to come in here. Who knows what they're going to do to me? So I quickly jumped out of my 2-story bedroom window and I landed on the ground. And they say I'm lucky I didn't lose a finger because I have a
Wow.
scar here because I landed on the glass
On
somehow.
the glass. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's blood pouring down my arm. I'm running into my boyfriend's house. Next thing you know, my parents show up there. There's an ambulance. My father said no because, they charge you. Uh, he's grabbing me really hard by my arm, escorting me to the car, taking me to the hospital to get stitches. They were angry with me. It's not like they were like, are you okay? Like, no, it was the opposite. Um, wow. Yeah. It was just not what I needed. Next thing you know, I'm being admitted into a mental hospital. Okay. So it's like, wow, like my parents don't want to have anything to do with me, is what I ended up getting from that. But then I was released after 2 weeks, and I to this day, I don't understand why. I think it was because my parents felt like I didn't need to be there because they never really were for therapy or counseling or anything like that, which makes sense why they themselves were suffering, which seeped into their parenting. So this stuff kind of happened to me left and right. The next thing you know, I'm back at home and my parents send me to go live with a male cousin who lives there in Las Vegas. He ended up incestuously raping me as well. And every opportunity he got, he did it. I didn't speak up. What for? Nobody's going to do anything about it anyway. That's what I thought. And I love sharing this story because I feel like it's a God story. And it's where this man came to pick me up at my apartment, or at that apartment that I was living with my cousin. And he tricked me and said that this other friend sent him to go pick me up. So here I go with him. He brings me to this house, or this apartment that I remember being at before. But when we were there, I was with my friend and there was a lot of guns, drugs, and money. So I thought it was dark, and I was like, oh, well, maybe it's because they're doing stuff in there and they don't want anybody to see them, so they're hiding. But when we walked in, it was like everybody had just moved out. Like the lights were off, the
Weird.
floor was like, like when you move out and the floor is dirty, like in those crevices,
Mhm.
those places, like you need to vacuum. That's what it looked like, and it was dark. I remember instantly being scared, asking him if he had a phone so I could call. And in his broken English, he points the phone that he doesn't have one. It's when the phone jacks were like at the kitchen counter.
Yeah.
And so he proceeds to take me to the back of the room, have his way with me. Gratefully, he let me go. And I remember walking down the street like this because, after that happens to you, you just feel so dirty and ugly and ashamed. And I wanted to run so fast, but I was afraid he'd catch me and not let me go. But then I was afraid to walk too slow because I just wanted to hurry up and get out of there and get to safety. But when I got back to my cousin's house, there was a whole bunch of cop cars lined outside. And my cousin's wife, because he was married and they had kids, and she told me that they got a page with a series of ones. And in the booklet that they gave us, it means emergency/help. But I'm not the one that sent that page.
Mm.
So someone sent that page on my behalf, and I truly believe it was God. When I was writing my story and I wrote that part, I just started bawling because it just hit me. I was being protected my entire life. My entire life I've been protected. And that's just like a scratch on the surface of what I've experienced, because at some time later, this cousin, his brother, had his way with me. And I remember one time after he was done with me, he just went out to the balcony. And I remember joining him on the balcony, and I looked at him and I said, do you by chance regret anything that you just did to me? And he looks at me, clearly not sober. And he says, I never regret anything that I do. And I'm like, well, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that, but okay. So again, there's just, it just seemed like I started believing like these things, like I was put on this earth to please men. I was put on this earth to be abused by men. My voice doesn't matter. I'm not allowed to question things. I'm not allowed to do what I want. I'm supposed to do what everybody else wants. I need to please everyone else, mainly men.
Mhm.
That's my sole purpose on this earth. I truly, truly believe that. I had no sense of identity. I did not know who I was. I never learned that because throughout my life, I just kept putting all these trauma bits into a backpack, if you will, and I became very heavy. I would get bullied in school. I started fighting back, like you mentioned. Hurt people hurt other people. And the girls at school weren't necessarily threatening to me. I guess I felt like I felt the need to hurt other people because I
Yes.
had all this pain inside, right?
Yes.
Oh, but so wrong. And I apologize to those women in my book because if they ever get their hands on it or come across it, I really wanted them to know that what I did was wrong and that I was sorry for hurting them. Like I gave them concussions. One of them was in the hospital. Like I beat the crap out of them. And it breaks my heart that I did that, but I understand. And I have forgiven myself because I did that because I was carrying so much pain inside.
Right.
But that's why it's so important for us, for everybody in the world, to purge their pain. Because if we don't, then we will always respond to everyday life experiences from that place of pain. And mine, I had all this crap in there, and a lot of us do, and it's alive. We think that it's out of sight, out of mind, but it's still alive, and it's that's why we have limiting beliefs. That's why we have all these things, because someone at some point in our lives was verbally abusive. You're not worth anything. You're not this, you're not that. And we believe it. And then
Right.
we take that and then we wonder why we can't be successful, as F. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
why? It's because we don't realize how amazing and powerful and that we all have something to offer this
Yes.
world because we were abused to some degree.
Yeah.
And for me, that like I mentioned before, I was out in the streets, toxic relationships. I was raped by random men left and right because I never learned how to take care of myself. I believe that's why I was here. I would get belligerently drunk on drugs to numb the pain. Didn't even realize that that's what I was doing. I was so belligerent. I became somebody that I was not. It was basically a manifestation, a combination of everything that I had experienced, my thoughts, my words, my behaviors. It was all from everything,
Right.
and it wasn't really me. And so what really pulled me out of that was I ended up being in this really horrific relationship with this guy, and I ended up getting pregnant. And I was all happy because I love babies and I thought I was in love. I thought, all this stuff. I did not know any better. And so I feel like I was being taught a lesson. It's like, you really want to get pregnant? This is what it's like to be pregnant. Because I feel like when you get pregnant, your brain changes to that mommy brain, right?
Yes.
And I started looking at this guy and I was like, no, I
Not
can't,
safe for
no,
my baby. Yeah.
no. And I miscarried. And
Mm.
that taught me a lesson. I was like, I do not want to have a child with this guy. But I was not strong enough to realize that I needed to leave him. So he forcefully impregnated me 3 times, which I opted for abortions. And it was been one of the hardest things that I had to learn to forgive myself for, because I've learned of the procedure and what really happens. And it's very heartbreaking. And I put it for detail. I put it in detail in the book because I really feel like it's important for us women to understand and know the truth about what happens. And if we decide to make that decision, then that's your choice. But we should all be fully informed. And so I do have that in this book, and it's not pretty. But I said that, the next time that I'm going to be more careful. I promised myself I was going to be more careful. And if I ever got pregnant again, I was going to go above and beyond to be the best mother that I could be. And I feel like I've been doing just that. I
Yeah.
put, I put myself in school. I would get my baby ready, and fed, change his diaper, and bring him in his little carrier. And I was just hoping they weren't going to say anything. I was hoping they weren't going to say anything. And they never did,
Oh
thankfully.
God.
And that's where I met my now husband. We both have a lot of a toxic background, and I think that's why we attracted each other. And I used to say that I didn't want, or that we had no business getting together, but now I realize that we were brought together to heal each other, and it's been
Yeah.
a beautiful thing because we've gone to counseling, we've done those things, but never really got any real help. And then going through school, I'm putting myself through school, getting my education, getting a better job, to be able to provide for my son. But you think, oh, all this trauma, out of sight, out of mind.
Right.
No, no, I was fooling myself. It wasn't until we moved to Utah, and I've been here for about 4 years now. Um, we moved to Utah, think, life is great. I'm married, I have some kids. We have a house, like everything's gravy. I'm living the American dream, right?
Right.
And then I experienced the winter blues, and that's real. That's real. And if
Yes, it is. I live in Seattle, so it's all year. We get gray all year, but it's beautiful here, so I'm okay with it. But yes, it is when it's especially dark. It hits you really hard.
it triggers you, and it definitely triggered my depression that I thought I had escaped. And it it was like the floodgates, and I was just like, you know what, I'm fed up. I've been trying so freaking hard my entire life. Why do I still feel this way? What the heck? Like, I was so angry, and I just gave up. I said, I don't care anymore. I just don't care. I just don't care. I just sincerely do not care anymore. And so I was just laying in bed. I didn't care. What's the point? What's the point? I just didn't care. Then my little one comes into the bedroom and asks, why is mommy laying in bed? And that's when I was like, I am not going to do this to my kids. My kids do not deserve to experience the symptoms from the aftermath of these people's choices. They do not deserve that. They deserve to have a better, healthier minded mother than mine was to me. So that's when I got up and I went on this massive quest and started researching left and right for anything and everything. And what I found were those 3 words: mind, body, soul. You see it everywhere, right? And I was
Right.
like, all right, fine, there must be something to this. And I said, okay, so every day I'm going to do something to focus on my self-care, mentally, physically, and spiritually. I had already been on my nutrition journey of learning for it's been like for the past 12 years, more than 12 years probably now. And so I was really good with eating nutritiously. I knew about exercising and working out. So I feel like I had that physical piece good. But by that time, I had just had my baby and I was still nursing him. And so I could definitely get back into, the physical fitness and
Right.
things like that. So I started doing that, learned about mental health. How do I care for myself mentally? And then I realized there's a release ritual where you write everything out, or I typed it because I had a lot to say. And it's kind of like an emotional dump, like a brain dump, but an emotional
Right.
dump. And I wrote out everything I could think of, everything I felt, what my mom did, what she didn't do, what I wish she would have done. I mean, to anybody reading this, it probably didn't make sense, but that's not the point. It's just to get it out. And I was crying, and I call that honoring your emotions, because when we experience something, our go-to is to suppress it because nobody ever taught us. We immediately suppress it. But we're meant to honor our emotions. That's why we cry. And I
Right.
hate that men were taught that, crying, it makes you weak, that, you're not supposed to do that. The poor men in our world feel like they can't even experience their emotions because they're going to be considered weak. But crying it's actually strengthening, because you're not allowing yourself to keep that unhealed wound inside, which will weigh you down, and you will project that pain onto other people without
Right.
even realizing it. So that's why it's really important to honor your emotions. And I did that. I printed it out, asked my husband to sit with me in our little bathroom because I was going to burn it afterwards. And he sat there with me, and he's looking at me like I'm crazy because I'm just sitting there, not pulling out of my back pocket, because I was nervous about doing it. I don't know. There was just something there, and I had just finished writing it. So it's like, why am I acting this way? I don't know. But it took a couple minutes. Eventually I pulled it out very slowly. I was being very slow. And then I just started reading it. And this time I really, really allowed myself to cry. I let it all out, completely ugly crying, snot coming out my
Oh
nose. Like,
yeah.
you name it. I just honoring my emotions. And my poor husband, he's sitting there listening to all these hurtful things from the woman that he loves, the mother of his children.
Yeah.
So I appreciate my husband so much. And I'm so grateful that, he was my rock and helped me through that. And I've learned now, it's really helpful after that to say something along the lines of that I now wrap this in love and forgiveness, whatever means something to you, but that's kind of the idea, is to get rid of the emotions from that time in your life. and just wrap it in wholeness and completeness and love and compassion and forgiveness. And it's important to verbalize it. And you
Right.
say, this no longer has a detachment on me. Thank you for teaching me what you were meant to. You're no longer needed in my life, whatever resonates with people. And you burn it. And I went to bed. I made sure I was hydrated. And the next day, the best way I could describe it was it felt like somebody did surgery in my heart space because I felt lighter. The world seemed brighter. I felt happier inside. And I was like, oh my gosh, this stuff
That's
works.
awesome.
And I just literally became addicted to my healing. I just kept learning, implementing, and healing. And I'm just so grateful for everything that I have experienced in my life that I was like, I have to put this in a book. I need to share this with the world. I can't hold on to this. I know people are out there hurting. There's 10-year-olds that are committing suicide. What kind of trauma are these little people experiencing that they feel the need to commit suicide at 10 years old? That is heartbreaking. So
Yes.
I'm doing everything I can to use my voice now that I found it. I am not going to be quiet. I'm not going to, stuff it all down the drain. I am going to be loud, proud, and bold. And that's why I'm doing all the work that I'm doing, because I understand what it's like to feel like no one cares about you. Like you're all alone. You're not worthy. You have no value. You can't do this. You can't do that. You're dumb. You're stupid. I mean, you name it. I understand what that feels like, but I also know what it feels like to live in the light. And
Right.
I just want to be that for everybody else. I just want to share, pour knowledge into people, inspiration, because everybody deserves to heal. Everybody deserves to be happy. Everybody deserves to know what it feels like to live in the light.
Yeah. So many things. I love this. I mean, I don't love that it happened to you, but I love that your ability to share it. So my daughter, Marisol, she's the 21-year-old. She always sees 111 everywhere. And she'll take pictures
Mm,
of it and send it to me every time it happens. And we looked it up and it means new beginnings. It's the angel number for new beginnings. And she sees it literally everywhere.
that's me.
And
I
like
love that.
we'll be like driving down the road and she's like, "Do you see that license plate, mom?" Like, and then she like took a picture of an exit and it was 111. And like she needed to make a big decision. She was at Costco and she looked down the aisle and like the aisle right in front of her was 111. She took a picture. It's just crazy. But that, I was like, okay, we got to look this up and see what this means. And it means new beginnings of other things, but that's the main meaning, is that you're marching down a different path, or you get to close the door on this particular thing and start something more miraculous. And so that, I just like, that stood out to me too, like, and like you said, like a God thing, that this page that came through with all the ones is that you didn't send. I think that's amazing. The other thing that came to mind when you were talking was when you were saying about how hurt people. And there was a time in my life where a lot of really shitty stuff happened to me, and I like I could not hang. Like I went into a depression that was so deep that and I was a pretty depressed kid and teenager, but the best way that I can describe it, I call it the void.
Mm,
Like I was devoid of any emotion. I could not feel anything at all. I could not feel the weight of the sadness that I felt. I couldn't feel the anger that I needed to feel. I kind of expressed anger, but I didn't really feel it. And I didn't talk. I didn't talk to people about what was happening to me. Like a lot of people didn't even know until much later. But I didn't want to explain it over and over again. I didn't want to, I was like protecting other people. And I also just felt so much pain and shame, and like just it was just too much. And it was like so much that I just like shut off. And it was that way for a while. And unfortunately, I met my husband like 2 or 3 weeks before all these things started happening. And he was like such a nice guy, and I'd always dated jackasses before. And so I was like, I don't really know what to do with this dude. Like, he's so respectful and kind, and like he literally didn't even kiss me until a month and a half after we were officially boyfriend and girlfriend. I like got to
Wow.
kiss him because he was so respectful. And so, but what happened was I was so awful to him. I
Aw.
wanted to push him away so bad because he was so kind to me, and he was so loving and gentle. And I just was like, I did not trust that
Mm.
anyone could be that way to me. I did not feel that anyone could love me. I did not feel that it was sincere, and I wanted him to go away, but I also, something compelled me to not make him go away. And so um I would go to like somebody found me a counselor, like a free counselor, basically. And instead of talking about all the stuff happening in my life, I talked about whether or not I should break up with my boyfriend because
Oh.
he was so nice and I was being so awful. And I was like, why am I being like this? Like, really, truly, I thought to myself, if I really am like this fucked up, then I need to break up with this guy because he deserves somebody who's, he's so wonderful. Like, I mean, he deserves somebody who can be kind to him, and I just can't. Like, I can't be like like it was something inside of me that wanted to lash out at somebody, and he was such an easy target.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I wasn't physical, I was just mean. I just was like, why are you here? Like, leave me alone. I don't want to hold your hand. I don't like, I just was not a nice person. And I realize, and obviously forgive myself for it, now, but like I realized that it was because I felt that way to myself. I wanted those things. I wanted to punish myself
Mm.
because I felt uncomfortable with the life situation, and I wasn't living in, basically I wasn't living at home, and so I was just hurting. And so I it was easier to be mean to somebody else than it was to deal with the emotions of what was happening to me. And so gratefully, I just one night I decided, like, this is it. Like, I'm either going to open my heart to this person or I'm going to let him go. And I went to his work and I said, like, are you available after work? And we worked in restaurants, so after work was like 3 a.m. And so I took him to like a beach park that was open like 24 hours a day. And then we literally talked until the sun came up. And
Aw.
I just was like, and then I was like, I'm madly in love with this person. But it's just, it takes so much to get through that. And also, like you said, it's like having somebody who is willing to go there with you when you have really experienced I'm grateful for myself that our stories don't align so much, you know what I mean, because no one should have to go through what you went through. But I also acknowledge that any wound is a wound. Like, I have a friend who has a modality called core wound healing, which is very similar to actually what you described. And sometimes people will say, like, oh, I don't think I should. That's not really a wound because other people have survived sexual abuse or whatever, and this is just like whatever. And she's like, it's not like who's the woundiest. If
Yes.
it's a wound to you, it's a wound,
Yeah.
like it could be that Peggy dissed your hair in the 8th grade, but you're holding on to that, then that's a wound, like. So I honor that, and I am so grateful that I was able to, number one, have that modality I've worked with extensively, just like you said, just like emotional dump, and then working through, there's different steps through that. But also this book, just like telling the things that happened to me, but also just telling the things that I did that hurt other people. I mean, really, as a mom, I did harm to my children. I mean, not like anything crazy, but I wasn't there the way that I needed to be there for them because I was busy in my hurt space,
Yeah.
trying to be the overachiever, trying to do all these other things to fill the void that I still felt inside. But they didn't deserve that. And so, owning up to that in this book, and I'm very specific. I actually interviewed my children in this.
Oh, wow.
And one child refused the interview, but did sit down and tell me, like, she refused to be quoted, but she did sit down and like lay it all out. And it was the most painful conversation because it's the child that I have the most difficult time connecting to, because we're very different people. And hearing her express to me what I had done, or at least in what her experience was with me as a mother, hurt like hell. Because some of the things that I did with the intention to be better than what I had experienced had backfired and been made things worse because her needs were not what my intention were. She needed a mom who showed up. And
Yeah.
I was the mom who paid for things for her to do that honored her gifts and talents. And she said, you can't buy
Mm.
you being there for parent night. You can't buy you showing up when I needed you over here. You weren't there. You were busy with your stuff. She
Wow.
even said to me, like, you have time for your book. You have time to write a book, but you don't have time for blah, blah, blah.
Ouch.
I'm like, hot diggity digging 'em. Okay, wait a
Yeah.
but here's the thing is like, she's not wrong. She's not wrong, like, and I don't necessarily agree with everything because I know in my heart what my intention was. But just like I am expressing in my story how I experienced my life, she gets to honor how she experienced her
Yes.
life.
Yes.
That was what she lived with me as her mom. And my goal, just like how you are with your son and trying to provide this different life for him, my goal is now that I have a bit more knowledge about what their needs are and how they are as people. um, my girls are still in their early 20s. They're still developing who they are and exploring who they are. And I want to show up. And that child moved to California, and I have seen her every month since she moved to California. She's either come home or we've gone there. And I show up because that's what she needs. She needs a mom who shows up.
Yeah.
So, you know what? Whatever it takes, maybe not every month, but like it's just worked out that way. But like I like something important happens for her, I'm going to show up. Like whatever she needs, I'm going to show up because I know now that's what she needs.
I
It's
just
just
have to say, thank you, and I'm so proud of you because my own mother, to my knowledge, won't even read my book. I can't even talk to her. She won't acknowledge anything. And the fact that you allowed yourself to sit there and listen to your daughter's truth is monumental. And I guarantee you she's going to appreciate that for the rest of her life. So I'm just so proud of you for doing that. You're
oh,
stepping up and being a good mom. Yeah, you may have made mistakes. We all do. But the important part is that you learned and you're changing your ways and now you're showing up for your daughters, your family, and it's beautiful. I'm happy to know that.
thank you. It sucks. It doesn't suck to be there for her now because she's an amazing human, but it does suck to like hear and be in the face of, even when we're saying it to ourselves in these books and we're recognizing it, it sucks to look at it.
Yeah.
Just look at it. Look at the words. And that chapter was one of the most painful chapters, and it's still like in process because I think I need to go deeper and take more responsibility in there And that chapter is called In the Middle, because she's my middle child. I'm a middle
Mm.
child. And the reality of success is that we find it in the middle. We find it in the middle of things. So we don't find it at these mile markers that we think our success. We find it in the flower that we find in the backyard, or in our babies laugh, when they laugh so ridiculous and it just, you can't not smile, or in like finishing, which I haven't had this in a long time, but finishing a great workout and being like, hot damn, I did that. You know what I mean? Like whatever it might be, but we find the success. And if you allow yourself to find the success, it's in the middle of all of it. It's in those little moments. And it's an accumulation of that makes you successful as fuck. It is an accumulation of that, because if we don't allow ourselves to experience that, it's a very lonely life chasing that next thing that's far away. And
Yeah.
then what happens is you accomplish it and you're off chasing the next thing. But if you can have these little mini successes, it's a happier life. You're looking for the little successes. And I've said this on the show before, but like, I think we need adult sticker charts. Like, if you're potty training, you get a Skittle, for going to the bathroom. Or like if you're on a behavioral plan, you get a happy face every time you're on good behavior in class. Like, we need a sticker chart. Like, I drank my water today. Sticker, like I walked for 5 minutes. Sticker, and at the end you get an ice cream cone or something. I don't know, but like, we need to celebrate these
Yes.
dumb little things that happen in life, because otherwise it's miserable. Like, and it shouldn't be. There's
Yeah.
so many beautiful things that are happening if you open your eyes. So many beautiful
Yes.
things that are happening.
And celebrating yourself really is an important thing to do, especially if you were somebody that was not praised when you were being raised.
Mm-hmm.
Become your own cheerleader, become your own best friend, become, learn, dig into that self-love, you know what I mean? Because a lot of times it's just stripped away from us from, whatever we've experienced, or maybe we've never had the opportunity to develop it, altogether. So yes, we definitely need adult sticker charts.
Yes, we do, right? Tiffani, business idea. Let's
I
do
know.
this.
I was already thinking, girlfriend.
Well, let's wrap the show. I want to ask you two questions. First, if you looked forward 20 years from now and you had a legacy, looking backwards, what would you have wanted to accomplish between today and 20 years from now to have the legacy that you would like at that?
I feel like I already have that in my mind to accomplish. And it's, I see myself having 100 acres, our beautiful home that my husband and I designed together, and somewhere off, because it's 100 acres. So, somewhere off on the opposite end, I plan to have a nonprofit healing center. And
Oh,
it's where I want people to come that you don't have to worry about money, because I remember being young, wishing I had a place to go. And had I gone there, had a place like what I'm thinking of, I wouldn't have to worry about money, because like there's, how they tell you about your children, how giving them chores and responsibilities, it helps grow
yes.
self-esteem, things like that. I have that same concept with this healing center. So people would help, they would clean, they would do things. And plus it's a nonprofit, and there's a lot of healing mentally, physically, spiritually, teaching them all the things, everything they need to know. So by the end of the year, they're like leaving as a brand new person with this healthy lifestyle that they can do, because they've been doing it for the past year, and they've purged the pain, and perhaps they come out with their purpose and they know what they're going to do in this world. There's that. And then I have in mind to have an event center as well, where I host live events at my own event center for people to come. And I feel like that all in itself is going to be a legacy, because I want my home to be in the family for years. I want my sons, my children, everybody to just keep this going. I want it to be something that lasts a lifetime after my lifetime, so many lifetimes, to just keep going with this mission, to just help people understand that they can heal, that we can rise above everything. So yeah, that's my plan.
Awesome. I look forward to coming and experiencing that for
Yeah.
sure. Well, the last question that I always ask every guest is, what is the best piece of advice that you've ever been given? And this can be from anywhere, but what do you carry with you as a mantra or as something to get you through or just encourage yourself?
The first thing that pops into my head is to tell everybody out there that you, if you're a human being, you were made with the innate ability to heal. All you have to do is just say yes and surrender to the process. And I promise you will come out on the other end in the person that you were always meant to become.
I love that. I love that so much. And I believe that. And I'm still on 2020 was my healing rampage year. Like I did a lot of work in 2020, but I'm still on that journey. And
Mhm.
2021 was, really getting ready and doing the book. And then this year is really just reevaluating and getting back into the groove of saying, okay, I'm ready. Let's like bring it on, because now I've uncovered things and I
Yeah.
have a new perspective, and like interviewing my daughters and I interviewed my 12-year-old. The final chapter of the book is an interview with my 12-year-old. She was very kind to me. Like,
I'm so
she
excited.
was so nice. Yeah, which was it was refreshing. With all joshing aside, my middle child is a delight and wonderful, and we do have a good relationship. It's just that she is very honest, and I needed to hear it even though I didn't want to hear it. And so it was true, and it's part of my healing,
Yeah.
moving forward. So I really believe that what you're saying is true. So I hope people take that to heart. Well, we're going to be linking all of Tiffani's information in the show notes. Please buy her book. Hold it up again so they can see what it looks like. Unlocking Your Ability to Heal with Tiffani Patlán. It's on Amazon. It's a bestseller. You need it. Look at how beautiful the cover is. And we just thank you, Tiffani, for being with us and for sharing your story so boldly and so honestly. And I just thank you with my whole heart.
I thank you too, right back at you, because this is important. We got to use our voice, and we're doing just that. So we're going to make a positive impact in this world.
Yes, yes. Well, thank you guys so much for hanging in with us. This has been Successful as Fuck. The show, again, today is pre-order day. It's the kickoff of my campaign that will last for 30 days. But please, please, please hop on. Can't even talk. The website is successful-af.com. Check out the campaign. There's all sorts of bundle perks and fun things. There's the ability to get merch with the book. You want it. It's good stuff. So
I'll be getting it.
yes. So thank you guys for supporting me. Thank you for supporting Tiffani and this conversation, because it is so important. And we will see you guys next time. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, guys.